I'm so glad to see all of you. Now I'm gonna just say a few things, and then we're just gonna open up and we're gonna have questions. So we'll start in about 5 minutes. And so yeah, you see behind me, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's my mother's picture. See there's my mother, and underneath that is her ordination certificate. And so that's kind of, she's looking over my shoulder when I'm here in my library all the time. I feel her looking over my shoulder all the time. So it's kind of cool. And I don't think I mentioned that in mother tongue, but she's always under my shoulder. That means a lot. Thank you, David. I appreciate that word. I worked hard on that book, and I need to say, though, there's one chapter in that book that I will write another book about, because it's a chapter that Frank wrote that I didn't agree with, and I just let him have it. But it's the missing years chapter. What did Jesus do with his missing years? And so I have a whole different idea of how he spent those missing years than Frank did. And so I just, rather than fight with Frank, I just said, okay, we'll just go with yours. So, but one day you will, Glenn, my goodness. And Glenn's in Georgia. Wow. And we got Ina from South Africa. This is so cool. And wow. And we've got some South Africans here, and wow. The certificate to my left for the church apology. Yeah, it's exactly right. It's over there. Yeah, they defrocked her, and then a couple of years ago, restored her credentials and apologized for defrocking her. That was so cool. Yeah. So, but I'm kind of surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Somebody did, in back of me is a little kind of comforter, but of all of the covers of all the books at the time that I had written, and so you can see kind of the comforter with all of the books. We got Terry. What are you doing in Arizona? My goodness, that is so. I'm so glad you're in someplace warm. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great time at that cathedral I had, David. That was so wonderful. I really had a great time. And you tell my Gene, you tell my buddy Chris that I'm his number one fan. All right, and oh, look at this, we're all over. This is super. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna just kind of introduce what I hope to do in this little bit of time. We don't have a lot. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I just think it is a watershed moment, and I think. Thanks a lot, Wade. I think that we ought to recognize that this is a watershed moment, and that just to recognize the moment that we're in, and not to not belittle the challenge of this moment, but to say in some ways we were made for this moment. So I want to just start off by saying this is the first time, actually, when you think about it, in history, never outside of world wars, never have so many unions acted in unison to pass laws, to take measures that have affected the populations of the entire planet, and the amount of change that we've seen in just a short period of time is breathtaking. I mean, we went from over full employment to full employment in 1 week. And this is earth-shattering. This is earth-shaking. And so I want to just pause here for a moment and say none of us are prepared for this. None of us have any idea. We're taught how to deal with this. But in the sovereignty and providence of God, God must think that we are able to, with God's help, to deal with this, because God put us here for this moment, for such a time as the charge to keep I have, to serve this present watershed moment, our calling to fulfill. So we can fight the moment, and we can say it shouldn't be like this. This is a bad moment. How did we get this moment so bad? How did we get into this? We critique, but that's not what I want to do. I want to just start with saying this will go down in history as one of the most incredible moments. As bigger, the only comparable thing is a world war. I mean, and so let's begin with this. That this recognize the moment that we're in. The early Christians, when they prayed, this is how they prayed. They prayed. You can see this in the catacombs. They prayed like when somebody stick them up, hands up. And so they just surrendered. It was a moment of, this is how they prayed. They prayed and they would bow their heads or sometimes lift their heads, but it was hands up. And so this is a hands up moment. We just surrender. We surrender ourselves. We are not capable. There's no way we can do this on our own, but with God's help, we were made for this moment. And I don't know why God put me here at this moment. I understand, but this is the moment that God has given us. So there's all this conversation. There's all this conversation about, well, when things get back to normal. And I just want to begin with this, that things are not going to get back to normal. Right? Well, when they get back to before this happened, this is not a back to normal time. The normal is gone. And as soon as we get this in our heads, well, we can bring things back to normal in a couple months. They are not going back to normal. There is a new. We've got to figure out what that normal is. Although, in some ways, Christians don't do normal. If you're a follower of Jesus, the one thing you can't do is normal. So the fact that we're not living and we won't be living in normal times again ought not to scare us, because we have trouble doing normal. What do you more than others? Jesus said to his disciples. So we're always in a posture of doing of being open to the edges. So it's not the reset. We are resetting. Not when this is over. It's not going to be over, because from now on, this is a pandemic world. This is a world where the new norm. And I hate this phrase, but the new norm. It's about 6 feet. You stretch your arms. The word is social distancing, but this is the new norm. The new norm is social distancing. It's an incredible challenge for the church, because it's a new norm where we are. Where globalization is over as we knew it. I mean, we had this beautiful view of a globalized world. We're all going to be connected, and we this wonderful rainbow future where only connect, and now we hear the word connection and we break. There's fear, and you can't stop globalization. So the digital culture will continue to globalize, but we will globalize in all sorts of new ways, and the new way will be ones of virtual, vicarious, secondary derivative, all this kind of online stuff that we're doing. So we've got to understand that the globalization has changed, the idea of a globalized world, but at the same time, we can't stop it. But the power now is in the local, and it's called a shut-in economy. I think of it more as a circle the wagons economy or a huddle economy, but people are going to huddle. They're going to circle the wagons, and the now is in the local. And what a moment for the local church to truly be local. I just want to show you here something for us to claim this moment. It means, first of all, every one of you pastors has got to get a new kind of place where you do your what we used to call office. And back in 2002, I wrote this little book, A is for Abductive, the language of the emerging church. And 170, just so you all can, if I can find it here, I suggested that, it's not 170, where is it? 270. You can see this? You can see it, but S is for studio. S is for studio, where I was suggesting that forget the office. We got to create a studio. Space for clergy has got to be not a. It used to be a study. For study, it was a lap desk on a horse. And then we went to office. We sold out to the business model with a big desk. The model today, and I was suggesting this back in 2002, has got to be a studio. A studio where, in a couple of senses, one where you can, at a moment's notice, communicate, live stream with your entire people at a moment's notice. But a studio also working apprentices, we're working in teams where at the same time you have these three C's: collaboration, creativity, and connection and communication. So the studio is for communication, it's for collaboration, and it's for creativity. And these are much like the artistic studios of Florence and Milan and other places, where before you had museums, you visited an art studio, and that artist studio had apprentices. You would pay to apprentice to a master like Da Vinci apprentices to Verrocchio, and you learned. Nobody worked on anything alone. Any painting by Rembrandt or Da Vinci, or brush stroking it as well. So Da Vinci would come in and fix it up. And one of my favorite paintings, I have it as a shower curtain, actually, is Verrocchio. Was when Da Vinci was pressing to Verrocchio, they did the baptism of Christ, and Verrocchio said, "Okay, you do an angel, I'll do an angel." And so you got these two angels, one done by the master and the other by the apprentice. And when you look at the two angels, you go, "Oh my goodness, the difference." But it's every master's dream that you have an apprentice that gets better than you. And the Da Vinci angel Verrocchio's angel is great, but it's just flat and it's kind of normal. But Da Vinci angel is ethereal and mysterious and almost world. And so you know exactly who did what. So pastors, preachers, forget office, forget study. People are not, this idea of people are going to not come in to see you and make all that stuff. Think studio, a place where you can, in teams, collaborate and create and communicate. And the communication is key. A studio where you can communicate at a moment's notice, where your team can communicate, where prayer teams can communicate with people and kind of be present in 24/7 with people in your congregation. So we've got to really think about our space that we work in and play in. We've also got to rethink a pulpit. And I've been, a big advocate for a long time of get out of the pulpit, free yourself from that pulpit. But let me just say right now, I'm kind of backing off a little bit because there is a pulpit. Pulpit's your computer. This is not your pulpit. We've got to learn to get behind a new pulpit and learn to use a new pulpit. And the pulpit is our computer. And I've got to learn to do it better. You've got to learn. We've got to learn to do this. This is our new pulpit. And so we've got to learn how to communicate this way. We've got to learn how to our teams to do it from various locations. You can have sermons that you've got 5 or 6 people communicating at the same time through this new pulpit, but different places in the church, different places in the community. The possibilities here are immense if we just use that studio to create new creativity, new collaboration, and new communication. So this is something that we should have been doing a long time ago. I came to Drew in 1995. I'll never forget this. And first thing I did was trying to get the curriculum online, begin some online courses, and I got such resistance that people, you're turning the school into correspondence school, and how dare you do this for the academic integrity? Has got to have this facial component. And I said, well, yes, it does, but it's both and basically after 6 years of fighting the faculty, administration, everybody, I just that's when I became the Eli Jones professor. But now I just said the president of Drew has made a dictate. This is just this week. All faculty virtual faculty. I'm going, wow, holy cow. Let's see, from 1995 to 2020, how long? Maybe finally, we're coming around to this kind of a realization. So pastors, I'm going to be saying more about this and blogs on Preach the Story, but I just wanted to get out here. Now, one more thing is really huge. We should open it up for comments and questions and conversations. And we are in a unique position to rediscover who we really are and should be as disciples of Jesus and what is the function of the church. And by that I mean, Jesus spent his ministry doing three things: preaching, teaching, and healing. That's his essence of his ministry. 3 years, wherever he went, he preaching, teaching, and healing. You go to seminary, and immediately you go to seminary because you want to be a great preacher. When you get out of seminary, you realize, okay, I got to be a teacher too. But I've never had anybody go to seminary and say, I'm here to learn how to be a healer. And I've never had anybody graduate from seminary and go, okay, now I'm ready. I'm a good healer. But let me tell you, if you don't understand the world that we're in, it's a pandemic world where the new paradigm is pandemic. This pandemic is not going to go away. I mean, this is a glorified, intensified influenza. You've always got the influenza. So from the new default setting is pandemic. You're never going to be able to do anything without this default setting of pandemic. In that kind of a world, this healing function is so key. And in the future, it's healing number one, teaching number two, and preaching number three. We've got to learn how to be healers again and understand that the essence of the gospel is health and wholeness. And in fact, in 1525, when William Tyndale first translated the Bible from the Greek into English, the word that he used, and basically like 70-80% of the King James Bible is the Tyndale Bible, but the word that he used for what Jesus did on the cross wasn't salvation, it was health. And really, he meant healing. And by the way, salvation is a healing word. Salve, ointment, the salvation, the healing anointing and oil and ointment that makes us whole. And so in a world where the new heroes are the first responders, the new heroes are the health professionals, this is where the church ought to be standing side by side these people. And these frontline people. Jesus is always pushing us to the front lines. And our front line is precisely here as healers, as healthcare people, as people who, not all of us. I mean, there's three kind of edges. There's the leading edge, the cutting edge, and the bleeding edge. And God calls all of us to be on the edge, but not all of us to be on the cutting edge or even the bleeding edge. But we ought to see ourselves as part of. Disciples of Jesus are part of the healthcare people now, are part of the healers, the new heroes of this world that are they're out there on the edges, first responders, and so just a new reframing of the church, reframing of ministry, reframing of how we're seeing. The delivery system has changed. There is a new pulpit, if you will, and this pulpit is right here. Is this computer? And we got to learn how. Now, let's in the next 10, 15 years, we'll have. There'll be all sorts of possibilities because we'll be able to do holodecks and 3D stuff but right now this is what we got. And so we got to use what we got until things change. So let me stop there. I've given you a lot to think about, a lot of comments. And the question here, do you mean by studio, shooting anywhere or designated studio? I mean both and. I mean, I think you do need a collaborative space for working with your team. And so part of it is like a music studio where you go in and you have the power of communicating, but there you have the power of communicating instantaneously everywhere globally, and that's why you can't you're never able to stop this globalization, although globalization will take a whole new turn. I'm really worried about the tourism industry. This is the number one industry in the world. What this is going to do, but I don't want to get into the specifics here. I just want to keep focusing it on your role and mine as our calling to be healers and healthcare people in this time, in this pandemic culture, in this pandemic climate. So, so claim your role, claim the role that Jesus gave us as in the health, healing, wholeness, the shalom business, and don't leave your quote healthcare professionals alone. We stand side by side with them as disciples of Jesus. I think absolutely the studio concept is both a physical place and an online where we can create online studios, but we all need space too, and we all need a space to live. We live physically in a habitation, and so a habitation is less of an office and more of a studio and an online foundation. So thank what else? Other comments, questions about this new world, how we might better serve it. You got to think in your head now. We've been saying this for a long time. Distance is dead, and the separation always separated us has been miles, not miles. And there's a way in which we can convey that intimacy that transcends all distance, and we can do that. And so I just encourage you to really start claiming this new online. Many years ago, some of you who are my students remember this, that I conducted classes in second, and everybody had their own avatar. They created their avatar. So you want to know their avatar, and everybody heard one another. Real virtual platform, which was playful and fun, but everybody was there, and you had a feeling that you were in a space together, and that I think it's time for us to relook at some of this stuff, other virtual platforms, and look how our kids are gaming, and the way in which they create intimate space online in their. And there's Jody says, I don't remember your avatar, Jody, but I do remember some of the avatars, and it was really interesting what kind of avatars people would pick. There's no, I don't, it was really a Maranatha moment for the church. There are a lot of colleges will not make it through. Christian colleges will not make it through. They're tuition dependent. How are you going to say, come home from school, come home, we don't want you on campus because it's dangerous on campus, and then, oh, by the way, in the fall, send us $40,000 so you can come back to campus. I mean, so I'm really there. If schools don't reconceive and reboot from zero, we're going to have a lot of casualties. And the same with churches. If churches do not reboot from zero, you're back to zero. When the paradigm shifts, everything goes back to zero. And so we've all got to go back to zero in our thinking here. What does it mean to preach? What does it mean to teach? And most importantly, what I'm saying is, what does it mean, to heal? And we need all ourselves in the healing. I don't mean the hocus pocus healing. You know what I mean? I don't mean that kind of, Benny Hinn, he's kind of moved away from it. So don't call me Lenny Hinn here, okay? I'm not talking about that kind of hocus stuff, but I mean the healing of mind, body, spirit that Jesus brings when you become his disciple, and the salvation is a healing of brokenness and of all of the broken parts of our beings, and that's the business that we're in. It's time for create, but we need teams to do that. We cannot do this. We cannot be creative on our own. I mean, the sparks are beaten forth by the flint striking together. So we need team, we need collaborators, we need partners, pals. Rosabeth Moss Cantor calls them partners, alliances, liaisons, strategic relationships. We need pals to be in this together. So please, don't be afraid of this new world. We were made for this time. If we just live out of the past, not in the past, but live out of our past and out of the heritage and the hope that Jesus and the horizons that are there, right in our own biblical story. So, so let's carpe diem. Let's not the day. The day's gone. Carpe diem is gone. We got to carpe mañana. We got to seize tomorrow. We got to seize this future, and we can do this. So just wanted a little time with you, an alert for future. We can go into a lot of specifics here, but I can't tell you enough. We are the need for this. For us all to inhabit a studio mindset, a studio space where we need each other, and we need each other for this kind of communication to take place. You need the collaboration, and you need creativity. So, so thank you. It's great to be with you, and I appreciate you all being a part of this with me. And if this is helpful, I may do some more in the future. But this is my new format of Preach the Story. I'm just going to do dictionary text. I'm just going to talk to you about them. I'm going to specific little contextual detail without which we can't really interpret the story. And you can use some of these vlogs with your people and show them and to help you communicate and make a story better. All about the story. This will force us all to be storytellers. You cannot do this kind of new kind. You can't do the point stuff. Let me give you the 10 habits of highly effective discipleship and fill in the blanks in your own worksheet. And no, you can't do that. It'd be what as everybody online knows, every commercial knows. And teller who ever lived. He's you go anywhere in the world, any literature department. What was the greatest story ever told? And I don't care whether you're in, Moscow or Rio de Janeiro. That they will tell you, whether they're an atheist, Buddhist, Christian, whatever. Well, really the most perfect short story ever told was that prodigal son story that Jesus guy told. It's really the most perfect, most technically just immaculately presented and conceived and designed. So we serve the greatest storyteller who ever lived. It's time for us to relearn how to tell story. Now, I'm not just any story. I'm not just into let's just tell stories. No, I want the Jesus story. You tell it from Genesis to the maps. You tell that story, and we find new ways to tell that story and to tell it visually and to create. I mean, if you're going to keep people under 30, you got to have B-rolls. I mean, you cannot just be like I'm doing right now. I mean, you got to have moving things going on that screen. You cannot just be your talking head. You've got to have these B-rolls. And so maybe somebody on your team and your studio is just there to help you do really good B-rolls. I mean, I'm trying to do that with Preach the Story, but I'm just putting in the soundtracks, the music that I'm suggesting that you use. But if I had somebody, the first thing I would do is help me do B-rolls, help me do really B-rolls that lift up, and maybe even that's where your VJ, your video jockey is throwing up as you're talking other images on the screen that relate to what you're saying and what you're communicating. So the way in which this becomes a palette of possibilities, a palette of images, a palette of because our kids 30 they can't just see one thing. They got to see many things at once, or else it doesn't grab them. So, so just look at ESPN and how ESPN kind of communicates their games and everything. It's not just, you don't just see the court, you've got many things going on in that screen. So, all right, everybody, great to be with you all. Thank you for being a part of this. I appreciate you all stopping by. And again, if this is helpful and we can go into more depth, we can do more of these. So, thanks.